Well, hello everybody. I know this is a late night release, but before I go any further, before I forget, I want to thank Special K on Acid, one of my subscribers and viewers of my channel, who reminded me of this topic in a comment in one of my previous videos. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting to do this for at least a month now. Oh man, I got to get on this. I got to get on this right now. So what is the topic? In order to introduce you to the topic, I'm going to have to read you some articles from a very interesting anime known as Ghost in the Shell SAC 2045. Okay, so now the first article is actually from Wikipedia about the Russian-Ukrainian war. Let's get into this. First article, Russian invasion of Ukraine. This article is about the Russian invasion that began in February of 2022. On February 24th, February 2022, Russia invaded and occupied parts of Ukraine in a major escalation of the Russo-Ukrainian War, which had begun in 2014. The invasion has resulted in tens of thousands of deaths on both sides and instigated Russia's largest refugee crisis since World War II. About 8 million Ukrainians were displaced within their own country by June, and more than 8.2 million had fled the country by May of 2023. It's literally last month now. Okay, where's this going? Give me a moment. Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex 2045. Ghost in the Shell SAC 2045 is a Ghost in the Shell anime produced by Netflix. The character designer is the Russian artist Ilya Kushinov. This was the series' first portrayal in full CGI animation and as an animated series, and to achieve a sense of photorealism with 3D graphics. It sucked, by the way. Utilized motion capture technology for realistic motion. The first 12 episodes of the 24-episode series were released on April 23rd, 2020 in Japanese, and directed by Shinji Aramaki and Kenji Kamiyama. The English dub was not made available until May 3rd, 2020, due to the COVID-19 pandemic causing production delays. The remaining 12 episodes of the series were released on May 23rd, 2022 with a simultaneous English dub. Now, I've actually watched this series. I watched it last year. And yeah, it's kind of a crock of shit series. The animation isn't all that good. The story isn't all that good. Plot synopsis right quick. When sustainable war spawns a post-human threat, Major Kusanagi and her Section 9 team are called back into action. In the year 2045, after an economic disaster known as the synchronized global default, rapid developments in AI propelled the world to enter a state of sustainable war. However, the public is unaware of AI's threat to the human race. Okay, starting to sound a little interesting here. All right, let's get to this. Let's get into this. Sustainable war. What is sustainable war? The sustainable war is a concept and event in Ghost in the Shell SAC 2045. It was launched in 2042 by the American Empire, that's the name given in the anime, under AI code 1884 in cooperation with other members of the G4, the Russian Federation, China, and the European Union. An officially classified war as an industry to boost the global economy. In effect, the G4 nations went to war with each other in a sustainable manner, managed by AIs, artificial intelligence. Fighting deliberately avoided damaging major cities and essential infrastructure. Mercenaries and autonomous war machines machines that run on automatic systems or by computer, were heavily used. And the goal of most battles was to destroy enemy structures, vehicles, and equipment, while taking reasonable measures to capture rather than fatally harm human combatants when possible. In other words, the conflict would be sustainable as almost all losses could, in theory, be perpetually replaced by the military-industrial complex. This idealized vision of warfare nonetheless displaced populations and turned smaller cities and towns such as Palm Springs, California, into battlefields. Following the synchronized global default in 2044, the sustainable war became the only way for the G4 nations to keep their economies functional. The default also created countless destitute raiders who risked their lives amid the sustainable war to eke out a living or wreak vengeance against those they blamed for their poverty, the 1%er elites who continued enriching themselves through the war. In 2045, the mercenary unit goes, we'll skip this part. We'll skip this part because it's not important. Now, what is the synchronized global default? The synchronized global default is an event mentioned in Ghost in the Shell SAC 2045. It was instigated in 2044 by the post-humans who wiped out practically all digital financial data, including e-currencies, resulting in widespread economic collapse. The effects of the default pushed the wealth disparities in society to new extremes. The average individual had all of their debt erased, but they also lost all of their electronic assets and were beset by hyperinflation. Meanwhile, the wealthy 1%ers, which is put in quotes, 1%er elites emerged relatively unscathed and continued to prosper thanks to the sustainable war. In 2045, the sustainable war is the only thing keeping the damaged economies of the G4 nations, the Russian Federation, China, the European Union, and the American Empire functioning, as most fields of industry and business unrelated to the war effort had withered away due to the default. Now, what is found out later on in the anime is this. A mysterious AI created by the American Empire, referred to as the AI code 1A84. You guys can get what the idea of that is an American AI that is created by the NSA and is responsible for the creation of the post-humans and for starting the synchronized global default. So now, what was this AI supposed to originally do? And I remember hearing this in the anime because I watched all 24 episodes. AI code 1A84 was meant to do several different things. One, sustain the global economy, especially the American global economy. Two, continue to make sure that America remained a superpower. And three, find a way to deal with the consistent war situation across the world. It came up with an idea. Get rid of all the debt. So it used a virus and these cybernetic humans that it took over to create the synchronized global default, which quite literally meant they just erased everybody's financial data. All of their debt specifically. What does that tell you? The world runs off of debt. It doesn't run off of money. It runs off debt. Everybody's got fucking debt. Now, I just read to you about the sustainable war, the global default, and first and foremost of all, the Ukraine war that has been going on since 2014. Ukraine-Russian war that's been going on since 2014. And I read to you about sustainable war. Think about this. The G4 nations, Russia, the Russian Federation, America, China, and the European Union, they all decide we're just going to go to perpetual war with one another. We'll use machines, we'll use drones, we'll use AI, we'll use computer viruses, and we will constantly attack each other so that the military-industrial complex can just pump out more weapons. And how does this sustain the economy? We really don't know. Of course, this is, once again, a case of bad writing on the part of the anime itself. But look at how similar this is. We've been talking about some type of global economic recession or depression for pretty much since 2014, if not earlier. America and Britain have been in a perpetual war since 2002. Afghanistan and then Iraq. And we set up in both countries for 20 plus years. We're technically still in Iraq and the surrounding area, which would include Syria. We've been there for over 20 years. The Brits are still there too. Doesn't that sound like sustainable war? And as soon as we declare Afghanistan to be over with, back in 2021? We then jump immediately in 2022 into a conflict with Russia in Ukraine, where we're just sending weapons and drones over to the Ukrainians every fucking day of the week. We're sending money over there every fucking day of the week. We've already spent, supposedly by some estimates, $500 billion on a war that we're not supposed to be participating in directly, although supposedly there are troops there on the ground teaching the Ukrainians how to use the weapon systems we're sending them. This is sustainable war. This is fucking sustainable war. Ghost in the Shell was fucking right. And I hated this anime. It was such a shittily written anime. It made Ghost in the Shell look bad as a franchise overall. Now, don't you find it really interesting that the guy who did the character designs for the characters in Ghost in the Shell was a Russian? And right after the Ukraine war starts up, they released the next 12 episodes, set of 12 episodes, English dubbed included. And guess what? It's the second set of the 12 episodes where we find out about the mysterious AI, the post-humans, and all of the stuff that started the current level of conflict in the anime. Fuck me! Fuck me going and coming! Holy shit! Look, folks, you see where this is going, don't you? We're getting ready to do SAC 2045 up in here. Even, let's just say this Ukraine shit gets resolved by the time Trump gets in office. Trump gets in office and says, fuck this shit. No more war. Give them 4 years. They'll find another war to get into. They may even get into another war while Trump is in office. They'll find some fucking excuse. This is the sustainable war plan. Russia's going to make money off of this current war. America's spending money, but may make it back somehow. Ukraine, well, who gives a fuck what happens to Ukraine? That's the mindset of these people right now. The European Union and NATO is involved. China is involved. And each one of the people that I have just mentioned, each one of the nation sets that I've just mentioned, are all going through financial troubles. So what's the best way to get out of financial trouble? Start a fucking war in a little shithole Eastern European country. Start a war. And they're just going to keep going with this. They're going to keep going for fucking ever if they can get away with it. Because this is somehow going to sustain the economy. The global economy is going to be sustained on the backs and on top of the corpses of countless Ukrainians and Russian soldiers. I know you're saying this is conspiracy, Shatterhand. It's conspiracy. But is it? Is it? Go back and listen to what I just told you about. Yeah, this is an anime. Yeah, it's sci-fi. It's fiction. But damned if it don't sound a lot fucking like what we're going through right now. Starting to wonder if SAC 2045 was a fucking playbook. Oh yeah, guys, we got this. Yeah, sustainable war sounds like a good idea. We can try that. They're not going to call it sustainable war. Not in real life. I mean, can you imagine the G4 coming, stepping up and saying, guys, we're just going to perpetually go to war with one another. We're going to call it the sustainable war effort. War is going to be declared an industry, and we're just going to sit up here and just start bombing one another, but not really killing one another. We're just going to take out infrastructure and, the weapons and stuff like that. We'll keep human casualties to a minimum. Wait a minute, that's what the fuck we're doing right now. That's literally what the fuck we're doing. We've been doing that pretty much for the last 20 years in the Middle East. Now we're doing it in Ukraine. Boy, it's really scary and upsetting when you think about this. We are literally propping up most of Europe's economy, slightly our own, and Russia and China are propping up their economies by constantly funding war. Wars that go nowhere. Wars that seemingly have no end in sight. Wars that never have a victory. It's just perpetual fucking war. Sustainable war. Ghost in the Shell was fucking right. This is like all of those predictions they talk about with The Simpsons and several other television shows where they sit up here and say, oh yeah, did you remember this episode of The Simpsons that showed the Twin Towers were gone? They disappeared somewhere in a brochure. And everybody sees it now. They're like, holy fuck, how did The Simpsons know? They knew. Well, boys and girls, it looks like the Japanese know. They know. Because what's very interesting, in Ghost in the Shell 2045, most of this stuff takes place in Japan. Japan is not part of the sustainable war effort. Japan is doing okay overall, even though the global simultaneous default caused a lot of problems for their economy. They're not doing too damn bad. Yeah, it kind of seems like the whole deal. If you look at Japan, other than their decline in birth rates, constant steady decline, their economy is okay. It's really scary. And I remembered this from more than a month ago when I was looking up some animated watch, and Ghost in the Shell SAC 2045 came across, and I was also listening to some people talking about the Ukraine-Russian war, and it's like, holy fucking shit, sustainable war. This is it. This is the sustainable war. So, according to the wiki, let me look this up again. AI code 1A84 was first created and released in 2042. Okay, the synchronized global default happened in 2044. Okay, the current height of the Russian-Ukrainian war started in February 2022. It's now June 2023. If this is anything to go on, we have 1 more year. 1 more year before some type of global default happens on debt. And everybody starts losing their money, we get into a recession. But the war will continue. So we have maybe 1 year left. Maybe 1 year left before they come to us with the sustainable war option. They'll call it something else. They'll figure out a way. Though they may end up calling it the sustainable war effort. We may never know. Well, we may not know until about a year from now. We've got 1 year. And within that 1 year, if some type of economic collapse happens worldwide, you heard it here first. And by the end of that next year, which would be June 2024, we'll be in the idea of a sustainable war. That's the only way to keep the economies going. The only way to keep conflict from reaching nuclear proportions is just to fight everybody everywhere all the time for no damn good reason. Now, of course, this doesn't make any sense. I don't see how sustainable war keeps an economy going. It doesn't make any sense. Who's paying the war pigs to make war? If the economies of each of these nations are bankrupt or defaulted, who's paying who to keep these wars going? Like I said, one of the faults in writing with this show is it has the whole damn show itself. But I just wanted to put that out there, folks. This is scary. Look up Ghost in the Shell SAC 2045. Look up the things I'm talking about. This is scary. I'm not saying Ghost in the Shell is an absolute predictor of the future. But what I am saying, it all kind of comes together, doesn't it? almost like a conspiracy theory. Really fucking crazy. Really fucking scary. All right, folks. 20 minutes. We're at 20 minutes right now. I'm going to go ahead and go. I'll let you guys think on what I said. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.